Hey, Courtney, thanks for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good.
Good. Well, I know we talked before about, a little bit of your work history and with travel and, kind of how you got into the oil and gas industry. And it was a really fascinating, very unique journey because I think that it sounded to me like your background and, where you're originally from Connecticut,
Mhm.
making your way all the way out to West Texas, but you seem to have traveled fairly seamlessly into different environments.
Yeah, yeah. I've definitely been blessed with the progression that I made in the industry and with, I guess, traveling that seamless travel that started with my coworker, my boss at the time when I was working for Halliburton, Autumn Boss. He's the one that I guess presented me with that opportunity to where my progression within my career really took off. So he opened that door up to offered me a position to work in Australia internationally, and uh, yeah, it was beautiful.
Would you say that going to work in Australia, were you comfortable in your role in oil and gas, and then it was just embracing a different region, or was there a lot that you had to get used to just within the industry?
I wouldn't say I was comfortable in the role yet. It was about 3 years in the industry, and at that time it was kind of a hey, what's next? What am I interested in? What do I want to do? Look, thinking long term. So that's kind of where the conversation started, and really wanting to cement myself within the company, and knowing that I had a place, a home, something that I could see myself still doing, 20, 30 years down the road. So when he did present that opportunity to me, it aligned with what I wanted to see for that longevity.
Yeah, absolutely. And that has to provide a lot of comfort because I know that like with my oil and gas career, it's been a lot of just trying to find my place
Hmm.
and feeling comfortable in my roles that I would be comfortable in my roles, but they would always seem like they're going to be short-lived.
Mm.
That it would be, because of a downturn or project ending or a company just not staying steady with their work. Of course, COVID changed things, and there's always something. It always seems like you're waiting for the shoe to drop.
Hmm.
But to have that kind of home, I would think that would give you a little bit more confidence to go on to what's next or to kind of branch out, knowing that you have a little bit of that foundation established.
For sure. And you mentioned downturn too. And prior to getting into the industry, I think that was one of my hesitations, seeing the impact of a downturn and what it had on the community when I was living in Colorado, there in Grand Junction. Seeing what it did to that workforce, to the people that live there, seeing it booming at one point and completely busting. That was always a hesitation. But then once I had entered the industry and just saw how lively it was, how busy it got, and then again, the opportunities, the progression, I was able to kind of gain that comfort, see the longevity, understand the highs and the lows.
And kind of weather the storm along the way.
For sure. And I didn't experience, thank God, I didn't experience any downsides or any booms or busts to the industry per se until COVID. So I did get to enjoy a very long time span up until then.
So that you never really had that bottom out where it just comes to a screeching halt. That
No,
your position kind of allowed you to stay working and to stay consistent.
definitely.
Booming and busting is hard. It is very difficult. It's difficult to recover from. It's difficult to navigate mentally.
Yes. Yeah. And I guess with the boom and bust idea and the timing of how my progress within the industry lined up, uh, moving from Halliburton, working for MI SWATCO for a short time, then coming back to Halliburton for the Australia opportunity. That move from SWATCO to Halliburton, the timing couldn't have been better. SWATCO, with the department I was with at the time, experienced a major downturn. So when I made the switch to Australia with Halliburton, again it provided that comfort, that relief, and I didn't see the writing on the wall, but just the transition again, that smoothness.
Yeah, it seems like you do transition very smoothly, like even in like somewhat of a crisis state or, something ending, it's like you're just naturally progressing onto the next opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, and then making the transition from Australia to the Permian, West Texas. Again, that's where Autumn Boss, he again, hey, there's a Bayreuth team in with Halliburton in West Texas. They're looking for a management manager to fill a role there, and your name's in the hat. They're interested, and came down, interviewed, and I think that was November of 2014 and October 2014, and by November I was down here and started and integrating myself into the West Texas life and hustle and bustle, and enjoyed that for a very long time. From 14 to COVID was going into middle of COVID was 2020.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 2019, 2020.
So that's when I did experience the negatives. It wasn't oil field related, right? A social mass.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
I think that everybody was impacted in some way.
for sure.
And, having to make those adjustments. And in hindsight, like we did good with, the circumstances, just trying to make it work. But I'm thankful I wasn't in college at that time. That would have been very difficult to be a student, or any student, any age, but to have to switch from in classroom learning to being forced online and trying to learn through, new platforms. Just suddenly we're doing Zoom, and now it's a little bit of a way of life. And in some of those short-term solutions actually found their way into making a lot of businesses and positions remote, being able to communicate with, more accuracy, like, better platforms to communicate on, having meetings, scheduling meetings. And you can really connect and come together from all over the world in that space. And it's natural now. It's not forced, and it's not foreign. It's very much a way forward. And so I think, like, with some of that, now we're seeing more AI, and we were talking just briefly before about, implementing software or, automating systems to leave less room for human error and having systems that you can depend on. So it's a form of utilizing AI to your advantage. It's not replacing human. It's giving you a program that's going to make your work more efficient and the quality of your product better.
Exactly. The unfortunate side effect, it did force a lot of corporate companies to embrace the technology side, especially companies that weren't quite up to par or exploring those options yet. And it's definitely proved to add some versatility to the workforce and accommodate some different aspects for personnel.
So would you say, because you were in oil and gas in Colorado, and you've been in oil and gas in Australia, and now the Permian Basin post-COVID, so I would say that's a completely different, it looks completely different now.
Yeah.
How we do work and how we interact. Like, there's just a lot that's changed and evolved, but that's just over the course of time too. But COVID set a few things in motion that weren't there before. And I think that we've really leveled off and we've done well, kind of people finding their niche, or finding the right channels to be on, right organizations to be involved in, and how you want your lifestyle to be, because we were so limited there for a little while, like being told that we had to do certain things, or not being able to go into a building, locked doors. There was a lot.
Yes.
And so trying to do business like that, in sales and service and projects and maintain, because oil and gas is fast paced a lot of the times, and to have all of those extra obstacles and to work around them, it seems like we've smoothed out quite a bit since then.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely forced people and businesses to think outside the box and get very creative with business tactics and how we communicate. and efficiencies too. Yeah, it's proved beneficial for sure.
Do you think like where we are in the industry that there's going to be more jobs for people to do more efficiently in the future now that we've kind of established a little bit of how we're integrating technologies, that it's opening up the workforce for more diverse skills?
Yeah, there's always going to be the people element, no matter how technology advances. I think the human element, it is irreplaceable, no matter how much technology assists and what we're, improving on or making better or doing better. It still requires us to either create the technology, use the technology, or figure out how to apply it in the most efficient way. But yeah, it's always going to be a people business, and yeah, we make that possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, going back to working overseas in oil and gas, and that was, you said it was in 2013?
Yep.
2013. What did that look like?
Um, it was it was busy. It was an exciting time. It was, for me personally, it was just a fresh perspective on what we had been doing here in the U.S. land base, being able to go overseas, work with the locals, introduce our specific tools and processes to the customers there. Yeah, just being able to make a solid impact in the industry. We were very well received. Yeah, it was.
So was there a big oil and gas base, or were you introducing a lot of new ideas and processes?
For the current application, it was new to that area, but it wasn't. Their field was established to an extent. They had fracking, they had cement, they had the basics, the directional drilling. So they it wasn't absent of what we're familiar with here. It was more coal seam gas drilling. Here we have more natural gas and oil here, U.S. land based. But yeah, it was exciting and a different aspect and atmosphere to be in.
I bet that has played a role in like shaping your perspective of the industry, to have seen it in on a different continent in a different capacity. I mean, that gives you a very unique perspective on the industry.
It helps you appreciate just how vast the oil and gas industry is, and if you think it's a limited industry or there's no room for growth, it's the individual creating that limitation. You're going to be the only thing holding yourself back. There's so many opportunities out there. There's so many great companies. There's so many good people involved in the industry. There's so many different ways to network and create those relationships and open up opportunities. Yeah, so being able to take any aspect of your job internationally, yeah, really helps you expand and see what others are doing in other areas of the world. And yeah, it's a big, beautiful place.
I can really appreciate that, because I think that there's a lot of people in West Texas that can relate that, some of the relationships that you have in the beginning, if you come out here not knowing anyone, or, you're working in the field, it can be very cutthroat.
Mm-hmm.
It can be very difficult to navigate. And, it's to have that positive mindset that it's limitless when you've been a part of the boom and bust culture, and it seems like you're always waiting for it to end, but you're the exact opposite, because you're just waiting to see what opens up. And I think it's very much a mindset.
For sure.
Because if your experience has always been, this is inevitably going to end, and you're going to be chasing it, like in some aspects of oil and gas, if you work in the field, you're chasing the rigs, you're chasing the pipelines, you're chasing the work. But if you're in, different positions within oil and gas, or you're versatile. So if the work slows down, you can do something else, and so then you're just building onto that. But in certain areas of oil and gas, you can see where it continues to open up, and there's so many ways to do business. There's so many. There's no end to the services that we offer or the amount of work. It really is about getting the right people together, the relationships, and doing good business, and knowing that you're out there. Because if you're not asserting yourself, if you're not introducing yourself, going and getting after it, nobody's going to know what you have to offer, and they don't know that it's better, or that there's a better way of doing things.
Exactly. And like you said, mindset is a big part of it. So going back into the COVID years, when I did get laid off from Halliburton, it wasn't an ideal situation, but the one thing I did say to people that knew I was leaving Texas at the time was, I will be back. Like, I don't want to leave Texas. It's only for a short time, and I will be back. I will be back in the industry. So for me, that mindset was, it's just a matter of time, whether it's 6 months, a year. It's what I want to do. It's where I want to be. I like Texas, so that made it even easier. That's exactly how it worked out. Almost a year after leaving Texas, through network or through a mutual friend, they said, "Hey, Tenaris is hiring. Are you looking for work? Or what are you doing? What's going on?" Because I was coming back down for a weekend, just, hey, popping in. And so what began as a brunch, meeting, then turned into a, hey, let's get you an interview. And then employment offer, and here we are, 2+ years after the fact, back at it.
And that goes back to your point that it is about mindset and being open and putting yourself in that position. So when you're in, fear-based thinking, or you've been in, part of the industry that always inevitably ends, you're not positioned the same way. But like with what you said, you popped in, but you did want to come back out here. The position that you have is obviously sought after, and that has a lot of legs. You can go different places and thrive, which is awesome. That's exciting. And so that builds that, that confidence and that faith that, something else can evolve.
Yeah.
Where, there's so much of that narrative, especially in mainstream media, or when we were in COVID, like, everything is ending, it's never coming back. Price of oil went negative. Like, what happens when it's negative? Like, what are we even gonna do now? And they didn't last that long, like, in the grand scheme of things. But remember that?
Yeah, it was panic mode.
Yeah, I mean, nobody really wants to talk about that, and I don't either. But it's like, it does get to that. We have gotten to that point, and we survived it, and it does show that we're resilient. And we did have to make some changes. There were some adjustments. But now it's opened up opportunity in a more efficient way. A lot of the way people communicate is through networking, through social media platforms, through, of course, the network of just knowing people and putting yourself out there and actually being able to, go into these restaurants and meet and have events again, and it not be so micromanaged or not allowed. I mean, there was a point where, like, nothing was going on.
Dried up.
Everything was just shut down. It was very scary. And so to be able to even look back on it, we've survived that. We've survived different administrations, and it seems like even though there's always a negative narrative surrounding it, if you get beyond that shell, like, we're really plugging away. And a lot of great things are happening. There's a lot of different parts of the industry, or the energy industry as a whole, that are working together within oil and gas, within, wind and solar, and all the different types of energy. There are some that want to work together. There's still a lot that it's very split. We're very divided, but I've seen a lot more overlap, especially in the last year or two, because I think people just want to have good quality life. Like, we all want the basic same things: good quality life, good job, the freedom to make choices, and really to do good things for where we live. And so we live in an industrial part of the world, but I think that we've made strides in being more environmentally focused and being safer, more efficient. And all of that is continuing to be more, not just a part of the conversation, but in our execution.
Yeah. Yeah, and like you were saying, the different types of energy and the overlap, that would be the dream equation, right? To see all parts push agendas to the side and actually actively work together to create a seamless energy ecosystem.
Yeah.
Not just pushing, oh, well, it has to be electric because, that's efficient. Well, we see what the inefficiencies are. We see it's not as great as it's been promoted to be. Wind, it's got its efficiencies and deficiencies. I mean, same thing with gas and oil. But yeah, I mean, if again in a dream world, if everyone could put their agendas to the side and put their heads together and have all parts work together for everyone's benefit, I think that would be the ideal situation.
We would get a lot more done. I think there would be more jobs and more creative collaborations, less arguing and fighting and agenda pushing, like you say.
Even from a political standpoint, too, it would end that.
It would end that. Oh. Well, and so that's where it's very interesting, because if you really take a deep dive in that, people with their political agendas and then mainstream media, they would be out of a lot of their jobs. We wouldn't need all that, and they certainly wouldn't be making as much money as they do. And we've seen in recent years, kind of like some of these empires crumble. Some of these thought leaders turned out to not be so legitimate, or, we constantly see this uproar in news media about everything political from one side to the other. It's nothing but drama, legal battles, and, just constantly trying to, shake out everyone's skeletons or find fault. And then you have this whole concept of, is what you're reading even accurate? Because there's this loophole that's come about where it's like, it doesn't even have to be true. Just word it.
Get it out. Just get it out there. Right?
Just get it out there, because you plant the seed. I mean, of course, you have the hardcore conspiracy theorists on both sides, and so then that's wildfire on its own. And then you've got people that can be swayed. So it's like, well, I read it, it could be true. And then you're worried, and you plant the seeds of doubt. And then you have people even like closer to it that their survival depends on the drama and the output. And so they're going to continue to push that agenda. And so if, the people that are doing the business just continue to push that forward and get it out there and get more of an honest, even-keeled message about what's really going on, it drowns out a lot of that, because a lot of that is just smoke and mirrors.
Oh, absolutely right. Yeah, it really presents... It would present us a sense of clarity to a lot of situations.
I'm hoping that, I tend to be overly optimistic, but, in the last couple of years that I've gotten more into, networking and social media and LinkedIn and connecting with different people and just seeing what everyone's doing, I'm hoping that some of that is, kind of starting to get pushed to the surface and people are seeing through it. But I think a lot of questions came about after COVID, because we got through it, and then it was like, what was all of that? And like what was all the fear-based tactics being pushed? And so it's like, in hindsight, we can all kind of take a look at it, bird's eye view, and say, hey, people were profiting off of that, and they still are,
in a big way,
in a huge way. It is scary.
It definitely raised, like you said, it raised a lot of eyebrows. It made you question, hey, what's the bigger agenda? What's the end goal? We saw where it wasn't really providing a lot of benefits. We saw the state that it put us as a people, as a country in, and then the divide.
Major divide, and then profited and continued to rally that division.
So hopefully, as a country, we learned from it, and we're not so easily susceptible.
Yeah, to be
the next
swayed
time.
like that. I absolutely believe there's a lot of people that took a hard look at it and, just think for yourself. Really look at why people are pushing certain agendas and understand the position that they're in, that a lot of it is because if it didn't exist in the way that it does, they would probably don't have a position at all.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a lot that's out there, especially in the political sphere. Then, I mean, in companies and corporations where there's a lot of positions created for individuals that benefit the agendas, and so that grows, and so then you have these false illusions in front of you, and people are buying into it, but it doesn't really exist because there's something behind that. And so if you really focus on what you can contribute, and this is what I've found, because I do not like being told what I can or cannot do, or where I can go, or how long I can stay, or what's all of that. And so I found that I feel a lot more confident in my position, just in the state of uncertainty that we're always in, with political affairs and safety and just everything. There's always this impending doom
Yeah.
about where we're heading. But I feel like, yeah, I get that. Like, I see, like, oh, things could get real bad real
Yes.
quick. But if we keep playing into that, then we're creating it.
Exactly.
And then we're just saying it is going to happen because, then you get beyond the conspiracy people, and then you're getting just your everyday walks of life that are starting to say, well, we're seeing it everywhere.
Exactly.
Well, just because you're seeing something doesn't make it right. It's their safety in numbers. It's like, well, if 500 people believe in this, I've got to believe in it too. I'm not going to believe in something on my own. It's very difficult to believe in something on your own when you've got people fighting and saying, look, this is what happened, or this is my experience. Well, people have their own unique experiences to things, but to then project that as like, this is going to wipe out civilization as we know it, or oil and gas is going to completely destroy the world tomorrow. Like, there's all this heavy representation, and it's like, that hasn't happened yet. And if you get inside the industry, you can see that there's a lot of companies that are doing things differently. It isn't business as usual.
And I think that's where, so we have the big media conglomerate, right? But then we've got the little guys, we've got this podcasts, we've got the radio, the small time radio shows. So when you start exploring those avenues, and again, you're getting, I think, a more accurate representation, a fair explanation, a not so one-sided agenda. It's a lot more transparent and honest with what's being delivered and the message that's being sent out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, like, I mean, for me with my show, it's really nice because the conversations are very transparent and even keeled. And it is just getting to know the individuals that are making this happen every day, or, like, they're the innovators, the thought leaders, or, the reason things are getting done better. And I think that by being on a platform like this, you don't have the pressure, because I'm not trying to be a part of the media conglomerate. Mm-hmm. In order to be a part of that, you have to buy in and believe and act a certain way, whether you mean it or not. Mm-hmm. It's just otherwise you're going to get left out. And if you want to pick a side, then you have to adopt the culture. But if you're more about, like, let's just do things the way we should, mm-hmm. that opens up the conversation. It almost goes back to your point about the mindset. Yeah. Like, you can have this fear-based mindset of what the mainstream media is telling us, or we can focus more on that optimism and believing in what you've experienced, and knowing that it's such a vast industry, a vast world. There's plenty out there. There's plenty of money. There's plenty of work. There's plenty of opportunity. Stop buying in mm-hmm. to that negative narrative and embodying it like it's part of your identity now.
Yeah. And I think the same positive mindset is being applied to even when we have our election years too, right? In the past, we've seen where, it's an election year, everything takes a big dive, slows down, everybody's kind of at a standstill waiting to see what happens. And I feel like the mindset with the companies, corporations, it's changing. We've already trimmed back so much. We've already become so efficient. It's not as impactful as it used to be. We're still able to operate and stay busy, keep people employed. So again, I think the mindset overall has changed from being that fear-based to a little more positive, and as the years continue to progress, and we're starting to see less and less of that become a detriment to the industry and our way of life.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think it's exciting. It's exciting, we're really bridging that gap and paving continuing to pave the way for the future. It's like just kind of taking control of it and saying, you know what, that's a narrative that is very, very outdated and inaccurate at this point because we've done so much. And I mean, there's still so much more that we can do. But again, with that optimistic mindset of knowing that it's out there and we can actually create it.
Yeah.
Well, it's been really great talking to you today, Courtney. I appreciate you coming on.
No, thank you again for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.